Go. So my name is Dr. Olamide Okulaja. I'm the Technical Assistant to the Honorable Commissioner for Health and also the Health Economist at the Lagos State Ministry of Health. And my role basically entails supporting all the interventions in the ministry to ensure that they are sustainable and they are able to generate as much impact in effect. How do we maximize the amount of healthcare we get out of every naira spent? So basically looking at health efficiencies and also evaluating domestic resource mobilization for healthcare in a pragmatic way. So that's essentially what my role involves. What does UHC mean to me? A lot of times people associate UHC with a destination, so they make it like a mark, like we need to achieve UHC by 2023. But UHC for me is not a destination, it's a journey. And it's a never-ending journey, but it's a journey that you can progressively mark the progress you have made as you go along and ensure that you do it in an incremental way and you measure the impact of whatever you're doing with focusing on primary health care and then looking at how you can furthermore expand your package as you go along. It's not about how beautiful a benefit package is, but it's about ensuring that the resources that are managed, the resources that we have are managed in an efficient way and not in a way that does not promote some level of transparency. Again, of course, we all know the definition of UHC, but we also need to look at our provider payment mechanisms. Are they the best ways of utilizing the funds we have? So, for example, Nigeria as a country looks at health insurance as a way of, or as the way of mobilizing resources to pay for healthcare. However, health insurance is just one of the ways of mobilizing resources and mobilizing revenues. There are other ways. One of the ways that has been talked about here is sin taxes. But the question again is, how do we implement that? Should it be implemented at the level of the state, of the center, or at the level of the state? Those are conversations that need to happen. But we need to definitely look at how to mobilize resources, especially as we have a high informal to formal ratio, and it's going to be very Herculean for us to administratively, in quotes, tax the people for healthcare. So there's a need for major innovative ways of raising financing for healthcare.
Progress.
Especially
in Lagos.
Especially in Lagos. So where do you think Nigeria is on the journey to UHC? Nigeria still has a long way to go. I think we have made some progress because we have a lot of laws. Again, what's important is how do we implement those laws and how do we domesticate them? What is the role of the legislative? What's the role of the executive? What's the role of the federal, state, and the local government? Again, you have a lot of ambiguity in these roles, and you have juxtapositionings and overlaps of roles and responsibilities, which causes confusion. If a child has many fathers, then it does not, then it's an orphan, right? And so that's what's happening to our healthcare system, because there are so many people that are trying to put their hands in the system and trying to solve it at the same time. If we have a concerted way of working together to develop a framework and then funding that framework, then we may begin to actually see some leaps and bounds in the progress that we're making. Right now, have we made progress? Yes, we have. Is it satisfactory? No, it's not, because all our indices are still the highest in the world. We are spending so much money, but we are not seeing the impact. And so there's a need for us to begin to think very differently in how we approach the way we are trying to achieve or move in the journey of UHC.
So you just mentioned we need to think differently. What are those things you think we can do differently?
So, for example, I don't personally think going forward that health insurance is the only way that we can raise financing for healthcare. We need to begin to look at alternatives in raising financing for healthcare. We need to begin to look at how can we effectively improve on our taxation systems. Right now, you have the tax to GDP ratio of Nigeria landing at about maybe 2 to 3%. In Lagos State, is also 3% of GDP. How can we improve our taxes so that we can realistically mobilize more funds in a social manner to provide healthcare, especially as we cannot effectively tax our population to be able to raise those fundings. So those are the conversations that we have, and how can we now begin to reduce our reliance on donor funding and on loans, because what it does is that it continues to commit us to things that we cannot achieve, and also continues to put us into debt. Nigeria's debt to GDP, debt servicing to revenue ratio now is hovering at about 98%, which is terrible because we do not have enough money to actually, even in any way, be able to invest in any form of capital expenditure that can improve our industry. So we are not creating more jobs. Recurrent expenditure is at its all-time high, and we're even overshooting the budget. So we're spending much more on recurrent expenditure even than we budgeted, which is not a great thing. We should be spending more on capital expenditure and seeing how we can improve industry. So there's a lot of new thinking and innovation that needs to come into the industry. You know, I can't say that I have all the answers, but I can tell you that if you have a group of people that can sit together and think, you know, through all the things that we have, then maybe we might be able to get some solutions that we can try. We will fail, but there are also lessons to be learned in failure, right? It's no longer looking at how we take on what is happening across the world and adopting it to Nigeria. It's now, how can we create healthcare systems for Nigerians, by Nigerians? And that's what we need to begin to look at.